And before I was president, we had done two things. We were so proud of ourselves when Dave Cross was president that we had the 800 number. We thought we were really coming into the 21st century. And then we hired the first executive manager. And we kind of stepped out there on that limb, and we didn't really know if we could pay the whole salary, the whole everything. And at that point in time, we didn't know if they were going to saw the limb off behind us or whether or not we'd actually make it. So my presidency was the first presidency that had a full-time general manager. And at the end of it, Bruce Caldwell said to me that, well, you passed on about $750 more to Bruce Gutgazell than Dave Cross gave to you. And at first I was a little bummed out. I thought, wow, that's not very good. And then I realized that we had paid Bruce his salary and that we had come out on the plus side. And so I thought that was probably a pretty good thing. Absolutely. And we now have an office where for many years we had an office in his house. And so it was really, you know, I mean, I had a board that was really far looking in terms visionary, I guess is the right word, that we were able to pull it off and we made it work. And I think I said one time it made it possible for a mere mortal to be president of WMEA, to have that support. It was very difficult. People had to give up parts of their lives to be able to be president, and that's not right. You need to be able to have your life and be president, and it is a lot of work. It's at least, in my mind, an 8-year commitment. And I know that Ted took him 14 years to get all the way through. We started as curriculum officers together, and he was president after me by about 6 years. So it's a long-term commitment to the organization, but on the other hand, you do still have your life. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I know that for me, it really helped. I was prepared for whatever it was going to take, but I think perhaps in people that have come after me, that might be something that would be have come into it. The other things that happened in my presidency was that we piloted the state ensemble contest. There had been a committee out there for several years, but we hadn't actually gotten to the point that we could run the contest. And I asked, okay, how do we get this to happen? And they said, well, you have to get through the WIA Music Committee, and it only meets once a year. Well, if it only meets once a year, that's like, and things take 7 to 10 years to get done, you really have to jump in the very first meeting, and it's in October after you take office in July. So we really, really pushed to get that all set up so that we could run the pilot a year and 6 months after we had that first meeting. And we were, I think, in a good place because WIAA wanted some things that were not just athletic to be sponsoring. And so we had the state solo contest, but the state ensemble contest really was something that we wanted to have happen. That was, I think, one thing. And then the other thing that was instituted in my term was the Hall of Fame, which is what we're here today. I sat one afternoon with obviously nothing better to do than to read the Constitution of the organization. I just happened to have one of the old directories in my hand, and I was sitting there, and it said something like, anyone who is the teacher of the year will automatically be in the Hall of Fame. And so I said, so where is this Hall of Fame? And they said, well, we don't really actually have one. So we put it together, and the board went to work on it, and we had the first class instituted at my conference. So that was a really huge and wonderful thing to have happen. And so the first 2 classes were really big, and then they've gone with only 10 since then. But we had 60 years to go back and find, the movers and shakers of 60 years. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I might have been the first one that was dressed up, and I had a do you know the poster that's the Uncle Sam, I want you to be in the military? Well, this was I want you to be in WMEA, and I had on a red and white striped Uncle Sam hat and some kind of red-ish jacket. And that haunted me for a number of years. I have a number of those pictures, the ones we didn't choose, but I'd walk into a band room and see that picture over somebody's desk, clear up until like 2 or 3 years ago. All of these were on the cover of Poco Voce, the first thing that comes out in the fall when you take office in the 1st of July, and that's the first thing that anybody sees. Well, they know I've seen a lot of pictures, of Bernie and Neil, and I think that the oldest living president at the time I became president, I think it was Ed Krenz, who was president in the 50s. So we were able to talk with him. He was at least one of those 2 conferences when I took office, and then my conference. I don't remember exactly, but it was one of those things where all of the presidential materials were encased in a couple of boxes, and you transferred the boxes kind of in the middle of the night in a clandestine fashion from one president to the next. And now, of course, we don't do any of that kind of thing. I don't think they have a different name. I think we still have reduction in force, riffing. I think we still have school boards that look on the arts as superfluous and expendable. And I think that only good teaching and only good programs will survive. You can't defend bad teaching. And that you really but I truly believe that parent power is the greatest power on the face of the earth. And if parents want the program, they will go and pound on the desks of the school board and the superintendents until they can keep them or get them. And if you don't have that, then you're probably not going to make it. If we can help young teachers produce music programs that are really fine programs and support them in that endeavor, then I really think that we can do a lot for them and keep those programs.